So I apologize for the lighting in advance. I am doing this little series called Nap and Yap while my son is sleeping. He's literally napping on me right now. And I just wanted to yap, but I will keep this kind of in the direction of postpartum. And yeah, so hopefully you'll stay and we can share our experience together. I'm currently 5.5 months postpartum with my second child. I have a 15-year-old and a now 5-month-old, so I have a bit of experience from both ends, both the teenage years, my daughter's in high school, and then now a newborn baby. So I'm really interested in kind of the postpartum experience, how I can support women, ways I can encourage them if at all possible, or just having a community together to support one another. I think that's definitely missing in our everyday lives, especially in this new age where everything's online. So obviously this is too, but I think I want to encourage people to kind of get out there as well, but also share my experience in what I've learned. I've also been a social worker for 5 years. I did work in labor and delivery, doing some of the postpartum support for women who had just given birth. And I now work in pediatrics, so I'm dealing with parents and moms a lot. And yeah, these are just kind of things I've observed not only in my work, but also in myself. And if I can help anyone out there, I would love to do that. I know that postpartum is such a vulnerable time. Obviously, if you are experiencing any severe postpartum depression, anxiety, rage, any of that, definitely reach out to, your mental health support through your doctor or, any hotline if it's an emergency. So I just wanted to say that disclaimer. But on a brighter note, I'm hoping here to kind of share my experience and encourage some other women as to what has helped me in my postpartum experience. It's definitely not perfect, but it is, overall going well. And I think part of that is having a open mindset about it. You don't want to have a fixed mindset, right? A lot of the times people can say postpartum is hard. Oh, it's just, sorry, just a moment. Baby time. Okay. A lot of times people will say, postpartum is hard, or postpartum is, you don't get any sleep. It's so tiring. It's this all or nothing thinking, when they don't even necessarily mean that, right? They may have times where they're very happy and joyful and having a positive experience, but we tend to remember the negative. Not to say that it isn't a negative experience, but I think if you go in thinking it's going to be negative, or if you go in thinking it's going to be great, you might be in for a little bit of a rude awakening, right? So a lot of times we can overly we can create these expectations based on what we've seen online. All this stuff goes into preparing for a baby. You're having a baby shower. It's all so lovely, a gender reveal, everything's over the top, or you're seeing people online doing all these things, prepping the nursery. A lot of it is fun, a lot of it is frilly, but none of that necessarily prepares you for the realities. And so getting enough knowledge and information about the process without freaking yourself out. I do believe a little bit of ignorance is bliss, but just enough to kind of prepare yourself for what might come postpartum is what can help you create a game plan. I saw so many so many different videos about prepping food, which I think that's important, or prepping the nursery and doing all these things. Also important, but what is going to help nurture your future postpartum self during the sleepless nights? What systems need to be in place now to kind of automate your life? And that could be meal prepping, that could be having food on hand just to grab and go. It could mean purchasing yourself some clothes. I knew I'd gained 40 pounds towards the end of my pregnancy, so I ordered a couple of things on Amazon, like postpartum sets, more like loungewear. We've all seen that work from home era when all of these sets came out that were super comfortable. They're good for wearing around the house. You can run errands if you have to, or if you have people coming over, as people like to do, they like to drop by, see the baby. You can at least feel a little bit put together. Now, is that something that you're going to want to go seeking out, going to stores to find clothing, 10 days postpartum? No. So this is part of my thinking of your future self concept, which means knowing what you will need, anticipating those needs, and then, taking action now while you have the mental capacity. Granted, I will say I was out of energy towards the end of my pregnancy, so it's not like you're like 100% feeling like yourself either. I honestly felt a little bit better postpartum, knowing that I, wasn't feeling physically weighed down. But I either way, I wasn't in that space to like be shopping, and knowing myself, I knew that okay, I've put on about 40 pounds, so it's likely that I'm not going to feel great about not being able to fit into my old clothes, and you know, I'm not likely going to feel great about having this extra weight on me while I'm physically recovering. Your uterus is shrinking, so knowing what is going to be, actual fat gain versus what you've gained through the pregnancy is important. You won't necessarily know that. I didn't know I was having a 9-pound baby until he was about to come out. And so then I could see, okay, well, 9 pounds of baby, X amount of amniotic fluid, your breasts, all of the things that adds up. And then whatever is left over is what I may have gained. And your body will naturally lose some of that. Again, it's something that everyone deals with differently. It depends on your body, obviously. For me, luckily, with breastfeeding exclusively and baby wearing and just like not having as much time to eat, I did lose a lot of the weight already. So I'm 5.5 months. I still have about 5 pounds left. So I think it's realistic to think by maybe the 6-month mark that you'll see some movement. Obviously, when you just have the baby, you'll kind of lose that weight immediately. You might even gain a little bit of fluids if you've been on an IV. So many different things. It takes like weeks and weeks to settle out. And then, you might be breastfeeding, so that could cause a calorie deficit. You might be extra hungry because you're breastfeeding, and then you're eating more, and some people do gain weight. So just kind of being aware, trying to get your nutritional needs met, so that you're not maybe snacking all the time. So making those meals count. Easier said than done. If you're very sleep deprived or you don't have a lot of support and you just have to reach for whatever, no judgment, but for when the time comes that you are wanting to look at maybe ways that can help you lose the baby weight, definitely look at what you're eating, and within reason, because if you are breastfeeding, you don't want to go in too much of a calorie deficit because you can affect your milk supply that way. So the other thing is movement. I had to wrap my head around that I am no longer going to be doing spin 5 days a week, right? I would commit to a class before, even during my pregnancy, go for a 45-minute spin at any time of day, really. And that was my workout. And now that I have baby, I just can't commit to something the day before because things can change. Sleep can change that night. Baby's nap time, so many different moving variables that are kind of out of my control. So what's working for me now is going for walks, doing weightlifting at home with lighter weights, sometimes going to the gym, maybe once or twice. And when I do, I try to like lift heavy while I'm there, and then it gives me enough time to repair those muscles in between. So it's actually a really good split. It doesn't mean it has to be that I only work out at the gym twice and then the rest of the week do nothing, right? I'm just trying to do what I can and be a little bit, you have to be a little bit flexible, a little bit creative, and you have to kind of let go of, some old ways if they're no longer working for you. Now, I think a lot of people probably get freaked out when they have a baby and think, wow, my life's changed forever. I'm never going to go back to, Pilates 3 times a week. Well, when they start school or preschool at 3.5 or 4, school at 5, like, I was working out 5 days a week and had a child already, but my daughter was obviously, 14, 15, and so that looks a lot different. You're constantly changing seasons, they're changing, their schedules are changing, and you have to just pivot throughout. It's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all. If you have a big community of support, which we don't necessarily have here in our area, that can be helpful. Sometimes, if your husband likes to go to the gym or do his own thing, you kind of can trade off having time for yourselves, whether it's an hour a couple times a week or whatever that you need to do for you, because I do believe investing in your health and your mental health will pay off threefold. It's going to affect both yourself, of course, and inevitably your children, and that includes the mood and the energy levels that you show up with, now and then in the future. Having my second child at 35, almost 36, I want to feel, healthy and live as long as possible for him, for my other daughter, for my grandchildren in the future. And so this is my way of doing that. Again, having the older child has given me some insight. I know that it may feel like you are a bad mom or you feel guilty going to take time for yourself and do that workout. I know that I did that, and we are still, I have a daughter who's doing really well in school and in sports, and we have a great relationship. And I think that taking care of myself and filling my cup first was so important and played a part in all of those things. So, you never know how, if you're a burnt out mom and you're there with them 24/7, it's not necessarily like quantity over quality, right? It's quality over quantity. So if that means taking a little bit of time away to improve the quality of the time that you're with them, then it becomes worth it. So yeah, eating, exercising, social time. If you don't have any other friends with children, there are apps like Peanut or things where you can kind of get together with other moms. There's always local like community things, whether that's through church or through the library or through like mom groups. I think that's important to have other moms who are in a similar season. Just because they're moms, like I can't necessarily hang out with other moms with my 15-year-old daughter's, friends' moms, because they're not in the same season. So I have to kind of seek out friendships or, look into activities and things with moms with children that are, as young as mine or around that age, so that we can meet at the park or go for walks and things like that. So social support is important. Accepting help is important. If people want to stop by and bring food, I highly recommend allowing them to do so. If you're the person that's used to doing everything, it can be difficult to kind of delegate tasks and or, ask for help, but I highly encourage it. Prioritizing sleep, of course, and nutrition is important, but so is getting help. So comment below if you're postpartum and what's been helping you.